Well, thank you, Judge Onan, and congratulations on your election.
Thank you.
Got good, Jim Henderson and Judge Onan, two good 1st Congressional District guys up here. If you've ever looked at the 1st Congressional District, you know it's in a unique shape. The Courier-Journal tries to blame that on me. They call it the Comer hook now, you know, but that was actually created in 1992. And I was at Western Kentucky University in 1992, so I don't know that they can blame that on me, but I love the 1st District. We've seen a lot we just got here about 20 minutes ago. We've been making our way in, and we've seen a lot of our constituents here. If you reside in one of the 35 counties in the 1st Congressional District, appreciate you being here. Look forward, we're going to stick around afterwards. Look forward to talking to you and seeing how things are going. But I'm very pleased to say that after 43 terrible days, we finally got the government reopened a couple of days ago. That was an unnecessary experience of pain for a lot of people. I've been in Congress 9 years. That's the 2nd time in the 9 years the government's been shut down, and both times nothing was accomplished. The first shutdown was shut down by the Republicans, and we gained nothing from that. The second shutdown was by the Democrats, and they gained nothing by it. So hopefully that won't happen again, and I know that creates a lot of uncertainty for everyone, and especially on the county levels, and apologize for that. And I tried everything I could to keep the government open, and we got it back open, and hopefully we can continue to get it open, keep it open. But it's always an honor to talk to the local elected officials. I'm from Monroe County. I think everybody knows that, and I grew up around the courthouse in Tompkinsville. I saw my judge last night. You all, I don't know if you know Mitchell Page or not. He was judge when I was in high school. I'm 53, so he's been around a while. And I said, Judge, are you going to be at KACo tomorrow? He goes, no, it ended last night. I'm like, no, it did not end last night. So anyway, it was a good thing last night. We had an event in Monroe County for my friend Max Wise, our majority leader in the state Senate. But the local elected officials, you all are closest to the people. And I've always said this about a magistrate. If you're in a rural Kentucky county and you're a magistrate and you've been reelected, you're about the strongest politician there is, because that's the toughest job. A magistrate and all the courthouse offices. Growing up in Monroe County, that's where everybody hung out. You know, it was at the courthouse. That's where all the information is. And I love when I travel around the state, I always try to go in the courthouse and see the local elected officials, because you all are the people that keep these communities going. And I know you have a lot of challenges, and that's something that I think that we're going to have to work together in the future. There's been a scenario over the last few years where in Frankfort, there's been a lot of federal money come in, a lot of grants, a lot of COVID money, a lot of stimulus money. And I think it's had a positive impact on Kentucky. It's had a positive impact on our hospitals. In my district, I have 29 hospitals. They've all flourished. Some of them a few years ago were at the brink of closure, and many of them, if not all of them, are in some type of expansion now. But there was a change in Washington when we were doing the Big Beautiful Bill, which was a huge positive for everyone. It lowered taxes. It provided incentive for businesses to invest. It goes along with our goal of America First, to try to bring jobs back to the United States, to stop offshoring jobs and put Americans first and workers first, and created an environment where these big companies that were sending jobs to China and Mexico and other parts of the world, that they invest in the United States instead. So I think that that bill was good. One change in that bill pertained to Medicaid. And there's a difference in Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare is what we get when we turn 65. We all pay into Medicare. We support Medicare. That bill did nothing good or bad to Medicare. Medicaid is a different deal. Medicaid is free. Nobody that's on Medicaid pays into Medicaid. And I support Medicaid. Medicaid was created for low-income people, for health care, for children, for disabled, for elderly people who are in a nursing home who can't survive on Medicare alone. That's what Medicaid's for, and we've always got to support Medicaid. But in Kentucky, Medicaid's been expanded greatly through, first of all, in the first Bashir, Daddy Bashir, it expanded during Obamacare, and then during Baby Bashir, it expanded during COVID, to the point to where we have over a third of the state on Medicaid. Now, Kentucky, which my congressional district goes down the Tennessee state line, in Tennessee, they have about 18 to 19% on Medicaid. So we have twice as many people on Medicaid as Tennessee. And when we passed a bill in the House that didn't really make any changes to Medicaid. That bill went to the Senate, and they made a lot of changes to Medicaid, which the big changes were basically we're not going to keep funding states that have an unrealistically high Medicaid population. And we fought that because we knew that probably wasn't in the best interest of Kentucky. But the Senate passed that. You had Ted Cruz, Rick Scott, and John Thune. They were the three leaders on this bill to make these changes to Medicaid, which they weren't reimbursing the states as much for Medicaid. John Thune is in a state with 14% Medicaid population, South Dakota. Rick Scott and Ted Cruz are in states with 17 and 18% Medicaid population. We've got 35% essentially of the state on Medicaid. So these changes are going to have to be implemented. It's 3 years until they're implemented. And we've got to work together. I've been meeting with all the hospital administrators in my congressional district, been meeting with all the state legislators in my district. And I think that we can survive, but like any business, you've got to make changes and change the way things operate. I say that because there's been a lot of videos produced saying that 35 hospitals are going to shut down and things like that. We're working with the hospitals. We're working with the University of Kentucky. I've been to Pikeville. My district's not in Pikeville, as you know. I don't think. It's getting there the way it's growing. But I've met with the CEO of Pikeville Regional, Appalachian Regional Healthcare, obviously the University of Kentucky, University of Louisville, as well as all the hospital administrators in my district. And I'm meeting with all the state legislators. And I think that we can make this work. But I say that because it's been a situation where you've had the ARPA money, you've had a lot of stuff. The federal government is spending $3 trillion more a year than we're taking in. That's the annual deficit. And I think in the future, the number of grants and the number of earmarks and things like that we've been blessed to have received probably not going to be as bountiful in the future. I can see a scenario very soon where the federal government just focuses on providing Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and military protection, as well as infrastructure. So I think we've got to work together in the future to make sure that the local governments aren't the ones that take it on the chin. When we talk about tax reform in Kentucky, I think we've got to make sure our tax structure benefits you guys. You all have challenges that a lot of people don't understand. Our infrastructure in Kentucky is at a crisis. We've got a crisis situation with water treatment plants and sewer treatment plants all over the state. I doubt there's a county in here that doesn't need significant investment and upgrades in your water treatment plants and your sewer treatment plants. We've all got infrastructure needs with road. We need guardrail. We need blacktop. We need a lot of investment in these communities, and I think that's where we need to focus. And as a United States Congressman, that's what I want to focus on, is to try to help the local communities, because I think we have a real opportunity now in America. I think there's an opportunity on two fronts. First of all, I think we've got an opportunity because of America First. And we haven't had an America First agenda for a long time. I would argue dating back to NAFTA, and that again was when I was in college in the 90s, and Clinton was president, and Ross Perot said there was going to be a giant sucking sound, if you're old enough to remember that. Well, that was pretty accurate. That's kind of what happened. And the policies in America incentivized companies to go to Mexico and to go to other countries. And over time, it's kind of happened with China's been the big beneficiary. China doesn't have an EPA. China doesn't have an OSHA. China doesn't have, lawyers with billboards on every half mile around asking, encouraging people to call them to sue the employer and things like that. Those are advantages that China had because of American policy. And what President Trump's done, and he campaigned on this, and some of the things have been popular and some of the things haven't been popular, with tariffs and other things, is we're going to punish companies, essentially, if they're based in America, if their customer base is in America, but they're producing this stuff in other countries, then they can continue to do that. That's their right, but they're going to have to pay for it. And as a result, we're starting to see companies like Apple, companies like Pfizer, big companies, big name companies that would have never built facilities in the United States. They're building facilities in the United States because it's more advantageous now under this America First policy to do it in the United States than it is in China or Mexico. That's the first time that's happened in nearly 30 years. So I think it's an opportunity for us in Kentucky, whether you live in fast-growing counties like Hardin County and Oldham County, or whether you live in counties like Monroe County or Union County or Simpson County is a pretty fast-growing county. But, we've got an opportunity now. And when we talk about Medicaid, I'm trying to tie this in with Medicaid because that's been a big talking point from some, is the problem we have in Kentucky is we have a lot of people on Medicaid that I think could be working and not on Medicaid, but our healthcare system in America is broken. Our employers are getting huge pay spikes on their group health insurance plans, and that they're not on Obamacare. When they say, oh, they're trying to blame everything on Obamacare subsidies and all that, the business owners, very few qualify for those Obamacare subsidies. So we've got to fix our healthcare system in Washington. And in Frankfurt, we've got to focus on finding people that look like me, that are healthy, that can work, men, and get them off Medicaid and into a new job that we're attracting to the United States from this America First deal that pays health insurance and pays good benefits, because we have a lot of poverty in Kentucky. It's not just in Western Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky. It's all over the state. Every county has poverty. And we've had an old business model on poverty. Okay, we'll help people in poverty. We'll get them on welfare. We'll put them on a government program. I mean, I've now in Monroe County seeing the fourth generation on this welfare. It's a trap. They can't get out of it. I think the best way to get people out of poverty isn't a government program. I think it's to provide them an opportunity, an environment to get a good paying job. And that was a talking point. That was easy to say for a long time, but the reality was, in a lot of communities, there were no good paying jobs. I mean, you could get a minimum wage job that didn't offer health insurance. But with this new push by President Trump on the federal level to bring those jobs back, to create new jobs in the United States, I think there's an opportunity. So I think there's an opportunity to recruit industry and to keep our best and brightest young people in these communities. Well, in these rural communities, because there's going to be new opportunities and new investment with good paying jobs that provide health insurance, that we can get them off Medicaid, get them into the private health care, and become tax-paying citizens and increase your tax base, because we've all got to increase our tax bases in the local communities. And I don't want to do it on the property taxes. We need to do it by more people working, paying taxes, buying local, doing all the things that we need in local communities. So America First is an opportunity. And secondly, I think there are some of these cities in the United States, and I'm going to use New York City as an example, where they have a significant investment, a lot of businesses, a lot of good businesses. And in these cities, whether you're talking about New York City, whether you're talking about Minneapolis, whether you're talking about Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, all this huge investment, they've got outrageous crime, because they've had these just criminal justice reform, excessive criminal justice reform, where they don't prosecute anyone. If you get caught stealing a car in the morning, you're back out trying to steal another car in the afternoon. And they've got these local elected officials, and as you all know, leadership matters, elections have consequences, and when you elect people that their whole platform is, we're going to tax the business owners and provide more free stuff for everybody else, that's going to force those business owners out of those states. And you've seen a mass exodus in New York City, but I think it's going to be even amplified after last Tuesday's election. And they've been coming to Florida. In California, they've been coming to Tennessee, a lot of them, because California and Tennessee and Texas have no income tax. And thanks to our Kentucky General Assembly, we are lowering our state income tax, and I think that with Kentucky's push to continue to lower the income tax, and President Trump and Republicans in Congress push to have an America First policy, I think we've got two huge waves of opportunity, and to get good paying jobs in our communities, to survive and prosper. And I just want you to know that I'm going to do everything in my ability in Washington to do that. I think everyone knows I have a very huge interest in Frankfurt. I was a state representative for 11 years. I was Commissioner of Agriculture for 4 years. And by the way, we've got a great Commissioner of Agriculture, Jonathan Schell. I know he's at the North American right now. He's doing a good job. And we've just got to make sure that you have what you need to be able to attract those new America First jobs, and those jobs from states, from cities like New York and Chicago that are going to relocate and look for communities that have no crime, that are business friendly. And I think we have that opportunity. So what do you need? You need good schools. We need to make sure that our investment in education is getting the best return on investment. We need to make sure our classroom teachers have what they need to survive. We need to make sure that you have good water and sewer treatment plants. We need to make sure that you have adequate levels of law enforcement. We need to make sure you all have enough rural and secondary road money to make sure your roads are good. We need to make sure that we continue to invest in our major infrastructure, our interstates, our airports, I represent Paducah, the inland waterways, all the barge companies are based out of Paducah. We need to make sure that that's where our investment dollars go. Bike trails, murals, things like that doesn't do anything for me, I'm just going to tell you, okay? We had this infrastructure bill under President Biden that I voted against. They had 25%, or 20% was supposed to go to broadband. And I had a lot, some of you came to the office and said, you got to vote for this. We got to have that broadband money. We got to have that broadband money. Or they kept calling it rural broadband, rural broadband. I said, you said rural broadband. I haven't seen that. I just see broadband. They said, well, it's the same thing. I said, no, it's not the same thing. They had a program they used when that passed called broadband equity. And I thought, what is broadband equity? Broadband equity is people in the cities can't afford to get on Netflix and things like that because they don't have enough fiber and things. So that money went to subsidize for vouchers for people in the city to pay for broadband. The broadband was already there. They just couldn't afford it because it was expensive. So that was broadband equity. That didn't run any broadband in Eastern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, or Central Kentucky, or Northern Kentucky. So we've got to bring some common sense back to how we spend money. And I think that's what the role of this Congress is going to be. That's partially why we had a shutdown, because there's a battle. We've got to hit a reset button in Washington because we're spending so much more money than we're taking in. Everyone in here manages a budget of some type. You cannot spend more money than you take in. And we're spending $3 trillion more. But government has a responsibility. It's government's responsibility to provide infrastructure. It's government's responsibility to make sure that senior citizens get Social Security, and that people that are supposed to be on Medicaid get Medicaid, and people that paid into Medicare get Medicare. So we've got a lot of challenges in Washington, but I see a lot of opportunities. And I think things are going to be differently. So things are going to be different in where the money comes from and things like that. So I know we've got a great group of elected officials all across Kentucky, Democrats, Republicans, independents. We've just got some good people, and I think we need to continue to work together. I try to stay in communication with all of the local elected officials, and I appreciate the leadership in these counties. But I think moving forward in Frankfort, that we've got to, make sure that we're aware of the changes to Medicaid, the changes on the grants and things like that, and make sure that we're doing things that give you all every opportunity in the world to maximize your local tax bases, to make sure that we don't pass unfunded mandates that make it impossible for you all to make ends meet in your county budgets and things like that. So it's important that we have that dialogue, and I think that we can do that. I appreciate KACo. I've been a big fan. I've come to these many years, and I appreciate everyone that's here. So I will conclude, but unless you all had any questions or anything like that I needed to answer. Did I miss something? All right. Well, I hope you have a great conference. I'm going to be in the back, and we look forward to talking to everybody. Especially if you're in the 1st Congressional District, love to get a picture with you. We post pictures on our official Congressman James Comer Facebook site. So we'll put your picture on there. And just remember, if you happen to read the comments, which I don't suggest, they're talking about me and not you, okay? So don't let it ruin your day. But we can I can post pictures with the Boy Scouts at 10 o'clock. By 10 o'clock and 30 seconds, there's 20 comments on there, blasting Donald Trump and with memes of me with Trump and less than flattering scenarios. And these are done by robots. I don't know if everybody's technologically savvy, but there are these robots now that you can pay these companies, and anytime we post something on Facebook, they just immediately, it would be impossible for anyone to be sitting there waiting for that picture to pop up on Facebook and make a bunch of comments in 30 seconds. So that's kind of the world we live in, but it is what it is, and I love being in Congress and working with people in local levels. But I'll say this, I think the two biggest problems in Washington that could be easily fixed is term limits and a balanced budget amendment. Because I said that one year and they said, "Oh God, you can't say term limits in a." I'm talking about term limits in Washington. Hey, no term limits on the local level, because it's hard to get good people to serve as magistrate and judge and mayor and city council. And I know this is KACo and not city, but it's hard to get people to run for those offices. So I'm just talking about Washington. And if you don't require Congress to balance the budget through an amendment, Congress is never going to balance the budget. I can tell you that. Yeah, I've been there 9 years. It's never going to happen. So those are two things that I think need to happen because we have a broken Congress. And the other thing I wanted to mention, people ask, why is it so hard to pass legislation? I want you to think about this. You know how sometimes if you have a divided fiscal court, it's kind of hard to get a majority, especially if it's a controversial thing. Everything's controversial in Washington. And there are 435 representatives, 435 people like me. We have 6 in Kentucky: Hal Rogers, Brett Guthrie, Andy Barr, Morgan McGarvey, and Massey. And you have to get 218 people to agree. 218 people to agree on the whole bill. And then once you get to 218 out of 435, then the bill goes to the Senate, and they have to get 60 out of 100 votes. It's very difficult to get to 218 in the House, and then 60 in the Senate, and then the president sign it. So that's why it's so hard to do. But I do think turning members over more would be better. But I look forward to working with you. I'm very interested in Kentucky and what's going on, not just in the 1st Congressional District, but all 6 congressional districts. Look forward to working with you all. I'm going to be traveling the state. I was in Jackson County and Rockcastle County this week. I was telling the judge I'm going to make a trip to Knox and Bell pretty soon. We've been in a lot of counties all around the state, and I'm enjoying listening to people. And again, I'm very optimistic about the future of Kentucky. We do have challenges, but I think that we can work together and achieve our goals. And our goal is to make sure that we have a prosperous community, prosperous counties that provide great opportunities for the next generation of Kentuckians. So thank you all for having me here. I look forward to talking to you afterwards.